I rise on the Greens to give our last call on the Land Transport Drug Driving Amendment Bill for tonight. And just want to say that I think on principle, everybody here has acknowledged that impaired driving can be an issue and it can result in harm. Whether this bill actually addresses impaired driving is a whole other issue. And I think to me, the previous speaker gave us actually a lot of good reasons as to why we should be cautious about this bill. And actually, there's a lot of really good, valid reasons in the previous contribution that would lead us to believe that and argue for this not being the solution to the problem. One of the issues that was identified by the previous speaker was the sort of technology that was emerging in relationship to having accuracy in those roadside tests, including in the laboratory. That is an emerging area that is being developed. And I think to me, the problem is that we're having a legislation being introduced where the technology is not fully there when we actually do have experts who have told us about the initiatives that can be put in place at the community level to reduce the harm that substance use can cause. So if the concern that we have is that drug use can result in harm, in this case, by people actually going on the road while being impaired, that can be addressed right now with the evidence-based stuff that we have available at our disposal that needs to be funded by the government in order for us to minimise the harm that substance can use. As many have identified, including the New Zealand Law Society, the Royal Australian College of Physicians, and the New Zealand Drug Foundation, this bill fails to address some key issues, such as actually ascertaining whether a driver is impaired, which is very different from whether a test actually registers that there's a substance in someone's body. This is a really, really important distinction that needs to be made. There were examples of how medicinal cannabis, for example, could end up making people result those tests in a positive way while having actually no signs of impairment, and that actually disincentivizes people from seeking medical treatment when they need it out of fear that actually they may face repercussions. While those penalties may not be put in place until the lab test comes back, actually even the roadside testing may result in people being prevented from driving for 12 hours. That cannot be understated as a harmful effect of a piece of legislation that is not grounded on evidence. Those 12 hours could have quite severe real-life implications for people. And the previous speaker spoke about sort of the randomness of, I guess, how this may be administered. But actually, what we do know, and the evidence can point to this, is that actually Māori and Pacific communities are already disproportionately targeted by our authorities. So the reality is that because we do have that systemic issue within our government agencies, what we will be seeing is actually the targeting of those communities in this piece of legislation when they're already targeting other parts of the system. And when already people are profiled based on, for example, their ethnicity or socioeconomic background and associated with drug use, I just cannot see how this bill, when it cannot present a robust evidence-based argument for example, how accurate the technology that we'll have will deliver a positive result when it comes to impairment, and yet we're relying on the authorities to make calls in relationship to roadside testing that will actually reduce harm in our communities. If the government was so serious about reducing injuries and death in the roads, what they would be doing would be actually not campaigning on increasing the speed limits and taking selfies to celebrate increases in speed limits. Those are the things that actually can make our roads safer. Those are the things that are grounded on evidence. And if the government wants to reduce the harm that substances causes, I think we need a minister in charge of issues that has a track record of actually campaigning based on the best research available. I think when we have ministers that have shown very little knowledge on issues relating to the evidence when it comes to health, I think it's concerning to see that a minister championing an issue that will actually not deal with the real harm that substances can cause in our communities that can result in death. And this is why our communities are far better than a dog whistle bill that doesn't address the fundamental underlying issues that can lead to harm in our communities.
Well, that does feel so, Ricardo.
Yeah, I mean, I just quickly looked up a different paper. Public transport is one of the solutions for preventing crashes, especially from drugs.
Yeah.
I mean, I just put a little factoid up from that paper, and I also linked the paper. But yeah, in New Zealand, passengers in cars and vans are 7 times more likely than bus passengers to be killed or injured in a crash. So. Yeah. That's one way to prevent death. If we want to, do it in a way that's a bit more ethical than constantly stopping people who may or may not be on prescription medication that may or may not impair their ability to drive.
Well, actually, here's an interesting thing, is there? When was the last time you went for a checkpoint?
Oh.
Mine was last year.
Same.
And it went through the same checkpoint twice, and it was just east of the speed camera on Whitford Brown Ave in Porirua near the police college.
Yeah, it probably wasn't. It probably hasn't been since last year for me.
Yeah, but that's something that I was, would be interesting. Is how often, for the audience who are watching, just type in when was the last time you actually went through a checkpoint. Oh. No, I did actually know there was a checkpoint later than that. It would have been when I had to do the 1 day nip back to Wellington to do the paper run and back up to Vinegar Hill, I got breath tested at Sanson, and the cop apologised for interrupting me eating a pie.
Yeah, well.
But I mean, hey, you know, some cops are pretty damn decent people.
Yeah,
Okay,
one thing I really don't like about this bill is that the burden of proof is on the person operating the vehicle rather than on the police officer. So it's like, oh, you've got to prove to me that you haven't taken this prescription medication or that you haven't taken this drug or you haven't taken. Yeah, and it's like, no, you're the one that's pulled me over. You've got to prove that I'm safe to drive or not safe to drive.
Yeah. Oh, yes, yeah. We know. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, News Guide, the Order Paper Podcast. YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok.